The scorching sun beat down on the dusty backroads of rural Alabama. The asphalt shimmering with heat as 9-year-old Lila Thompson trudged home from school, her sneakers kicking up tiny clouds of dirt. Her faded jeans and oversized Auburn University t-shirt, handed down from her cousin, clung to her skin, damp with sweat. Lila's backpack, heavy with books and a small toolkit her grandfather, a mechanic named Henry, had given her, bounced against her back. "Always be prepared to fix something," he'd told her, teaching her engine basics since she was old enough to hold a screwdriver. About 80 miles from Birmingham, this quiet, predominantly black community was her world, a place of tight-knit families and familiar faces. But today, something unexpected caught her eye. A sleek silver Chevrolet Camaro sat on the side of the road, its hood propped open, the engine exposed like a patient on an operating table. A man in a crisp suit, clearly worth more than Lila's entire neighborhood, paced beside it, his voice sharp as he barked into his phone. "I don't care what it costs. Just get a tow truck out here. I've been stuck for 2 hours, and I've got a meeting with the city council in less than 3. He glanced at a gleaming silver watch, his frustration evident. Lila hesitated, her grandfather's warnings about strangers ringing in her ears, especially ones who looked so out of place in her small town. But the man's desperation tugged at her. She adjusted her backpack and stepped closer, her voice small but steady. "Excuse me, sir. Need help with your car?" Grayson Caldwell, a 40-year-old tech mogul and CEO of Caldwell Dynamics, a $10 billion empire, turned, his irritation morphing into amusement as he saw the tiny girl with braided hair tied with bright ribbons. "That's kind of you, kiddo," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "But this is a high-performance car. I need a real mechanic." Lila shrugged, unfazed, and stepped closer to the engine, peering inside with a confidence that belied her age. "My granddad runs a garage. He's been teaching me about cars since I could talk," she said, her voice matter-of-fact. "I can take a look." Before Grayson could object, she dropped her backpack and leaned in, her small hands moving with surprising precision. "When did it start acting up?" Lila asked, her tone professional. Grayson sighed, figuring he had nothing to lose. "It started overheating about 30 minutes ago. Then it just died," he said. Lila tilted her head, her brow furrowing in concentration. "Did you smell anything sweet, like candy?" Grayson blinked, caught off guard. "Yeah, actually. How'd you know?" Lila pointed to a small puddle under the car, one he hadn't noticed. "Coolant leak," she said. "That's why it overheated." As she spoke, Grayson watched her, a strange familiarity stirring in him. The way she focused, her sharp, intelligent eyes scanning the engine methodically. It reminded him of someone he couldn't quite place. "What's your name?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. "Lila Thompson," she said, wiping her greasy hand on her jeans before offering it. He shook it, hesitant. "Grayson Caldwell." "Nice to meet you, Lila." She grinned, brushing a braid from her face. "I think I can fix this, for now." She pulled a small metal case from her backpack, her emergency kit, and got to work, sealing the leak with special tape. "This'll hold till you get to town," she said, "but you'll need to add water to replace the coolant." It was then, as Lila brushed her hair back, that Grayson saw it. A ring on her finger, an antique silver band with a sapphire stone, tied with thread to fit her small hand. His heart stopped. The sun glinted off the stone, revealing a star-shaped imperfection he'd recognize anywhere. A ring he'd given to a little girl named Lila at an orphanage called Bright Futures 12 years ago, days before it mysteriously shut down. What secrets did this ring hold? And how would it unravel the life of a man who thought he'd buried his past? The rural Alabama road stretched endlessly before Grayson Caldwell as he drove his silver Chevrolet Camaro, the engine now humming, thanks to Lila Thompson, a 9-year-old girl who just fixed a coolant leak with a confidence that left him reeling. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as he drove her the 15 miles to her home. His mind a whirlwind of questions. The sapphire ring on Lila's finger, a ring he'd given to a little girl at Bright Futures Orphanage 12 years ago, had sparked a memory he'd tried to forget. Grayson, now 40 and the CEO of Caldwell Dynamics, a $10 billion tech empire, had built his fortune on the success that followed the orphanage's closure. But the sight of the ring brought that past crashing back. "That ring," he said, his voice tight. "It's unique." "Where'd you get it?" Lila glanced at the sapphire, her small fingers twirling it. "It was my mom's, my adoptive mom, Evelyn," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "She passed away last year. She said it was a symbol of a promise, but I don't really know what she meant." Grayson's grip on the steering wheel tightened, his knuckles whitening. "Where did Evelyn get it?" he asked, trying to keep his tone casual. Lila shrugged, her braids bouncing. "She never said exactly, just that it came from someone special, and I'd understand one day." The words hit Grayson like a freight train. Bright Futures had closed under mysterious circumstances shortly after he'd given the ring to a little girl named Lila, a girl he'd promised to return for, a promise he'd broken when his father, Victor Caldwell, shut down the orphanage to buy the land for a fraction of its value. Grayson's mind churned as he glanced at Lila, her sharp eyes scanning the road ahead. "Have you always lived here?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Since I was 3, Lila said, her tone matter-of-fact. "Before that, I was at an orphanage, Bright Futures, I think. It closed right after Evelyn adopted me." Grayson's heart pounded, his palms sweating. "Bright Futures?" he repeated, his voice hoarse. "You're sure?" Lila nodded, curious. "Why? Do you know it?" He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I did, a long time ago," he said, his mind racing with questions he couldn't voice. They pulled up to a modest house with a sagging porch, the yard filled with wildflowers, the paint peeling but the windows warm with light. Lila hopped out, thanking him with a bright smile. "If you need anything, Lila, anything at all, call me," Grayson said, handing her his business card, his voice urgent. She took it, her brow furrowing with curiosity, and waved as she ran toward the house. Grayson watched her go, the sapphire ring glinting in the fading sunlight, a beacon of a past he couldn't ignore. As soon as she was out of sight, he grabbed his phone, his hands trembling, and dialed his private investigator, Michael Reed. "I need everything you can find on Bright Futures Orphanage 12 years ago," he said, his voice low. "And a girl named Lila Thompson, adopted by a woman named Evelyn. Start digging now." Back at her house, Lila sat at the kitchen table, her grandfather Henry and grandmother Nora exchanging worried glances as she recounted her day. "This man, Grayson Caldwell, he recognized my ring," she said, holding up the card. Henry's face paled, his eyes meeting Nora's in silent alarm. "Lila, sweetheart," Nora said, her voice tense, "we promised to tell you the truth about Evelyn when you were older. I think that time's now." She handed Lila a faded envelope, her hands shaking. "Your mom left this for you, to open if anyone from the Caldwell family ever showed up." Lila's heart raced as she tore it open, her eyes scanning the letter inside. "My dear Lila," it began, "if you're reading this, someone has found you. There are things you need to know." As Lila read, a dangerous truth began to unfold. One that would connect her to a billion-dollar empire, and a secret that could bring it crashing down. The cluttered workshop behind Lila Thompson's home in rural Alabama smelled of grease and metal, a haven where the 9-year-old girl could lose herself in fixing things. It had been 10 days since she'd helped Grayson Caldwell, a 40-year-old tech mogul, fix his Camaro on the side of the road. A chance encounter that had set off a chain of revelations neither could have predicted. Lila sat at a workbench, tinkering with an old clock radio, her sapphire ring glinting on her finger, a ring that had once been a promise from Grayson, then a keepsake from her adoptive mother, Evelyn, and now a key to a dangerous truth. The letter Evelyn left had revealed a chilling secret. Bright Future's orphanage, where Lila had lived until age 3, had been a front for Caldwell Dynamics to exploit children with special talents, like Lila's uncanny ability to understand machines. Evelyn, a nurse at the orphanage, had fled with Lila to protect her, but died in a suspicious car accident last year, her brakes failing under mysterious circumstances. Grayson, meanwhile, sat in his Birmingham penthouse, the city skyline glittering below, as he pored over documents his investigator, Michael Reed, had uncovered. The sapphire ring, given to Lila 12 years ago at Bright Futures, was a symbol of a promise he'd broken, but it was also a clue to a darker truth. His father, Victor Caldwell, now 72 and retired in Miami, had orchestrated the orphanage's closure to buy the land for pennies, a move that propelled Grayson to CEO of Caldwell Dynamics, now worth $10 billion. But the documents revealed a sinister motive. Bright Futures had been part of Project Enigma, a secret program to identify and exploit children with extraordinary abilities for military applications. Lila's name was circled in red on a list of 52 children, marked Special Case Contact VC. Reed's call came late that night, his voice grim. Evelyn Thompson's accident wasn't an accident, he said. Brakes were tampered with. And Lila's adoption records, they're missing. Officially, she never existed at Bright Futures. Lila's world shifted as she read Evelyn's letter, her hands trembling. The ring holds a storage device, Evelyn had written, with proof of Caldwell Dynamics, crimes, experiments, falsified records, bribery. If they find you, use it to protect yourself. Lila twisted the sapphire, revealing a hidden compartment, and pulled out a tiny chip. Her grandfather, Henry, and grandmother Nora watched, their faces pale. They killed Evelyn to keep her quiet, Henry said, his voice low. And now they're looking for you. As if on cue, a black SUV rolled past their house, its tinted windows hiding the 2 men inside, sent by Victor Caldwell to track Lila down. Henry grabbed his phone, dialing a number Evelyn had left for emergencies. A reporter named Nathan Carter from the Birmingham News. "It's about Bright Futures," Henry said, "and a girl with a sapphire ring. I've got the proof you've been looking for." In Birmingham, Grayson confronted his father, who'd flown in unannounced. "What's this about Bright Futures?" Victor demanded, his voice cold. "I found Lila Thompson, the girl with the sapphire ring," Grayson said, his tone steady. Victor's face darkened, a cruel smile curling his lips. "Some children are valuable," he said. "Talents like hers, fixing machines by instinct. Think of the military patents, the power." Grayson's blood ran cold as Victor revealed the truth. Bright Futures was one of 7 orphanages he'd closed to exploit gifted children, a scheme that had built their empire. "Why do you think we bought that land?" Victor sneered. But what neither man knew was that Lila was already one step ahead, her small hands holding a chip that could unravel everything Caldwell Dynamics had built. The conference room on the 50th floor of Caldwell Dynamics in Birmingham buzzed with tension, the glass walls reflecting the city skyline as nervous executives gathered for an emergency meeting. Victor Caldwell, a 72-year-old retired tycoon, stood at the head of the table, his face a mask of fury as he slammed his fist on the glass. "Where is my son?" he roared, his voice echoing. Just 10 days ago, 9-year-old Lila Thompson had fixed Grayson Caldwell's Camaro on a rural Alabama road, revealing a sapphire ring that sparked a chilling investigation. Grayson, now 40 and CEO of Caldwell Dynamics, had uncovered his father's dark secret. Bright Futures Orphanage, where Lila had lived until age 3, was part of Project Enigma, a program to exploit gifted children for military gain. Lila's ring held a chip with damning evidence, and now the truth was about to come crashing down. The double doors swung open, and Grayson entered, his face calm but resolute, accompanied by a woman in a sharp suit, Federal Prosecutor Elena Harper. "Sorry I'm late, Dad," he said, his voice steady, "but Elena has some questions about Project Enigma." Victor's face paled, the name a forbidden secret. "What the hell are you doing?" he hissed. But Grayson ignored him, connecting his laptop to the projector. "Something I should have done years ago. The truth about Bright Futures and the other 6 orphanages you closed," he said. The screen lit up with documents, photos, and reports. 52 children exploited, unauthorized experiments, falsified adoption records, bribery, intimidation. A video played, security footage from 12 years ago, showing nurse Lila Thompson fleeing Bright Futures with a young Lila in her arms. Followed by Victor's voice ordering guards, "Find her, she has military potential. We can't lose her." "You stole confidential documents," Victor shouted, his composure slipping. "That's corporate espionage." Grayson's voice was cold. "Documents proving far worse crimes, experiments on minors, falsified records, murder." The doors opened again, and Lila entered, her braids adorned with bright ribbons, her sapphire ring glinting as she stood beside her grandfather Henry and reporter Nathan Carter, who held a camera. "Lila," Grayson said softly, "you didn't have to come." She met his gaze, her voice steady. "I did. Evelyn said I'd have to face the men who made us run." Victor sneered, his eyes narrowing. "So you're Project 19. I didn't think you'd be so small." Lila's voice was unflinching. "And you're the man who killed my mom. Her brakes didn't fail by accident, did they?" Victor's smile was icy. "Proving anything would be impossible," he said. "One call and this disappears." Lila reached into her backpack, pulling out the sapphire ring, and twisted the stone, revealing a chip. "Evelyn was smarter than you thought," she said. "This has all of Bright Futures records, your meetings with military doctors, your plans to exploit kids like me." Nathan raised his camera, his voice steady. "This is live. 15,000 people are watching on social media." Grayson turned to his father, his voice low. "It's over. I've got a deal. Full cooperation for immunity. A jury will decide." Federal agents stormed in, handcuffs clicking around Victor's wrists as he shouted, "This isn't over." Lila stepped forward, her small frame towering in spirit. "Evelyn taught me broken machines can be fixed," she said. "But broken people need to fix themselves. I hope you do, in prison." As Victor was led away, Caldwell Dynamics' empire began to crumble, its stock plummeting as the world watched. But for Lila, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a legacy that would change lives forever. 6 years had passed since Lila Thompson, now 15, stood in the conference room of Caldwell Dynamics in Birmingham, exposing the crimes of Victor Caldwell with a chip hidden in her sapphire ring. The once powerful 72-year-old tycoon now sat in a federal prison cell, his $10 billion empire a distant memory, his name a symbol of corruption. Lila walked through the gleaming halls of the Thompson Tech Academy, a cutting-edge complex built on the site of the former Bright Futures Orphanage, 80 miles from Birmingham. The academy, funded by $250 million in restitution from Caldwell Dynamics' collapse, was a sanctuary for young innovators from marginalized communities, a testament to Lila's vision of justice and opportunity. Lila, her braids now longer, her eyes sharp with purpose, led a team of engineers through the Academy's labs, pointing out a glitch in a robotic arm prototype. "The circuit in the East Lab's still off," she said, her voice steady, her knack for fixing things as sharp as ever. At 15, she'd already published 4 patents, with Victor Caldwell, now 46, stood at the back wearing a simple polo and jeans, a far cry from his days as a billionaire CEO. He'd donated his personal fortune to found the Enigma Initiative, a program to support gifted youth. No contracts, no exploitation, just opportunity. "We've found 35 kids with exceptional talents this quarter," he told investors, his voice warm with pride. "Each gets a full scholarship and mentorship." The Academy's walls told the story. A timeline of Bright Future's dark past, newspaper clippings of Caldwell Dynamics' downfall, and a headline, "Teens' Evidence Topples Corporate Empire." Victor Caldwell, in his prison cell, stared at the walls, his arrogance reduced to a hollow shell. Abandoned by allies, his fortune seized. That evening, the Academy hosted its first graduation. 20 young innovators, once overlooked, now held job offers and scholarships. Lila took the stage, the sapphire ring, once a symbol of secrets, now of triumph, glinting on her finger. "At 9, I fixed a stranger's car on an Alabama road," she said, her voice resonant. "That act exposed a web of corruption, but it built this." The crowd roared, her peers cheering their mentor. Grayson watched, his eyes misty. The girl who dismantled his past had given him a new purpose. A letter arrived that day from prosecutor Elena Harper. 6 more orphanages like Bright Futures uncovered. 53 kids saved, thanks to your evidence. Lila read it aloud to Grayson, Henry, and Nora, a sense of closure settling over them. "Real power isn't in money or buildings," Lila said, gazing at the Academy's gardens where children played, free from exploitation. "It's in making a difference. What small act of courage can change your world?" Share your story in the comments, and subscribe for more tales of justice and triumph that prove one spark can ignite a revolution. Next week, we're uncovering another story that'll inspire you. Don't miss it.